Greetings, everyone, and unless you've been living under a rock the last few days, you may or may not have heard about the Switch 2 announcement and trailer, but that's okay if you haven't, because today in the show we're going to be covering exactly every single detail we know so far. I mean, we're talking console features, differences between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2, we're talking hardware specs. We're also going to be talking through a few questions that we didn't get answers to in the trailer. We're going to be making a few fun predictions about date, price, potential launch titles. I'll also have the trailer looping on in the background for anyone who may have missed the trailer. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So overall, the Switch 2 is just the bigger, better, higher performing sibling compared to the Switch 1. So a lot of today I'm just going to be holding and comparing the Switch 1 based on what we know about the Switch 2. But although it's larger and looks bigger, it's not obnoxious. It doesn't look like in the trailer. It still maintains that sleek, unique style that we've grown to love with the Nintendo Switch. We kind of expected that with this new console. I mean, that's what Nintendo has done in the past with previous generations when they already had a winning formula that was still relevant to the consumer. Like for example, with the DS, I think we had 4 iterations of the DS, and then again with the Wii going into the Wii U. We can expect the exact same things with the Switch going into the Switch 2. It's just an upgrade. They're not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but they're just upgrading that console. So the biggest thing that we see here, the Joy-Cons, like the old Joy-Cons, they have this mechanical click, versus the new ones are going to have a magnetic snap-on Joy-Con, which is, I can see that being a big value add. It just feels higher value, higher end, and maybe even harder to break. I could see that happening, for some families who have their household Switch. It might be a little bit easier to take care of versus these, mechanical versions. And additionally, the Joy-Cons can actually be used as a mouse. So from what I'm understanding, and this was even teased in the trailer, but from what I'm understanding, it would be something along the lines of like it's facing downwards and you can use it as a mouse, which some game genres are just better with a mouse. And I'm thinking like tabletop games, I'm thinking shooters, I'm thinking some computer games. I mean, shoot. Microsoft has already said that they plan on supporting the Switch 2 moving forward, and they've recently made some pretty big acquisitions, even in the MMO genre. I'm wondering if we're going to see more of those games come to the Switch 2. That could be really exciting. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with that mouse feature. Now, they also have a mysterious C button on the right Joy-Con. So maybe this is Nintendo's way of creating a quick button for chat. I don't know. They haven't announced anything official for what that button is, but I think we'll probably find out more to come soon on that topic. And then finally, instead of getting our traditional red and blue Joy-Cons, they're just a sleek black. Now they've got those colors inside the Joy-Cons, but it looks like a piece of hardware. It looks pretty standard. They just got rid of those colors. But just like this channel, we'll be covering those magnetic Joy-Cons. I'll ask you to magnetically click the subscribe button. I'm bad at this. Moving on. So the kickstand. The kickstand looks really cool. Looks to be broader. It appears to be more stable than the original. But if you look on the original, I mean, this thing is tiny. It's a mini me kickstand. But the other one, you can tell it extends the entire base of the console, and it even goes out a bit further too. So I'm curious to see what they do with the kickstand, and also knowing that they have that Joy-Con mouse functionality, I'm curious to see what they do with that pairing. That could be a really cool like mini computer setup. So I'm curious to see what they do there. I'm a fan. I'm not going to lie. We'll see what happens there. But let's be sure to discuss those possibilities when we get to predictions here in a couple minutes. As far as the dock goes, we got smoother, rounder edges in contrast to its sharp predecessor. So with the Switch 1, if you remember, it's just this block with sharp edges, but now it's got those smoother, rounder edges in contrast. And I've read potential leaks of an Ethernet port, but there wasn't an official confirmation on the Nintendo website. Or on the trailer for that matter, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't an Ethernet port in today's day and age. We'll just have to see. We'll have to wait and find out. So let's get into hardware specs. Nintendo hasn't revealed most of its hardware specs for the device so far, but industry insiders have leaked information about the device and its specs over the last few months, and judging based on what we know so far, most of them have been correct. So we can make some speculation today on what the specs are. So, as I was mentioning earlier, the Switch 2 is just the bigger, better, badder version with higher power. So let's get into specifics of what those specs are. And this is coming from an article from Polygon. So the system size overall is about 14% larger, including the Joy-Cons. So that's something you got to look forward to. The screen itself, like the original screen, was only 6.2 inches. I believe this is the original that I bought for my wife. And the new one's going to have an 8-inch screen. So Nintendo believes, hey, size matters out there. For all you little guys, we got to get you a bigger screen. We're going to give you an 8-inch screen. So that's what, 25% increase on the screen. CPU GPU, powered by an NVIDIA custom Tegra T239 processor. So that's not necessarily my strong suit, but for all you who care about CPU GPU, knock yourself out there. From what I can tell and what I've been reading, it's going to be closer to the power of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, according to industry analysts. But when it's docked, it can get up to 4K when docked. So you have that to look forward to. Again, the CPU, GPU, that isn't my area of expertise, but just I'm here to pass that along to you. Don't shoot the messenger, folks. As far as storage goes, we're still going to have access to use those micro SD cards for extra storage, but in today's day and age, that technology is getting better and better. So there's going to be faster read speeds, larger storage capacity with that as well. And then some really nice quality of life. 2 USB-C ports as opposed to 1. That's going to be a nice quality of life adjustment as well. Now we're still waiting to hear from Nintendo on other hardware details like the battery life, screen resolution, charging speeds, internet capabilities, but we're going to be finding all of those details out very soon. So keeping that in mind, when exactly will we be hearing more from Nintendo? They gave a couple hints in that reveal trailer and on their website. First and foremost, they've got a Nintendo Direct coming up on Wednesday, April 2nd, where they're going to be covering anything and everything Nintendo Switch 2. So any questions that we still have on the trailer or any ambiguity that there is still left regarding the Switch 2, they're going to be covering on the Nintendo Direct, as well as a series of events called the Switch 2 Experience, which is basically a 2-month-long series of events in cities all around the world starting in April. Those events end in June-ish. A couple of the dates haven't been released yet, but they're going all around the world where consumers can finally get their hands on the product to see what it's all about. So I think that's really where we're going to learn the most. So just to recap, right, we got the Nintendo Direct event where we're going to get all the remaining details, followed directly by the Switch 2 Experience, which is a series of events all around the world. We're talking North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, where consumers get their hands on the Switch 2. So that's going to be really interesting to cover. I'm sure we're going to be finding more about specs, more about launch titles during this time. And meanwhile, now that Nintendo has officially announced that there is going to be a Switch 2, I would expect that we're going to get more developers and studios talking about, hey, we've got a game coming out on the Switch 2 in December 2025. Hey, we've got a game coming out for the Switch 2 in January 2026. Or, hey, we've got a game coming out for the Switch 2 that we're porting over on, September 2025. Who knows? But we're going to find out, I'm sure, over the next few months, especially given the fact that we already have dates scheduled for the Nintendo Direct and the Switch 2 Experience. So obviously we're going to be covering all those events closely on the channel. So be sure to tune in here on the channel for those stories. We'll be covering those and having a blast. Also, I do have some great news for all you Switch 1 fans whenever it comes to back compatibility. So the video does confirm that the Switch 2 is back compatible as it plays both physical and digital Switch 1 games, in addition to the new Switch 2 games. However, they had a big asterisk there in the video. Only certain Switch 1 games may be fully supported or fully compatible with the Switch 2. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. That's going to be an ongoing story moving forward. But that leads questions about what Switch 1 games are going to be getting full upgrades for the Switch 2. So we'll be sure to discuss that in the predictions and what we can expect in this first full year out of the Switch 2. Now, some things I love to see on the Switch 2, I'm very curious at how they make use of the mouse and the Joy-Con, right? So, yeah, I grew up a computer fan. Like the very first game I ever played was Diablo 1 on the PC. So, I got used to the mouse and keyboard very quickly. So I'm curious to see what the Switch 2 does with this Joy-Con. I'm really not overhyping it. But, some games are just better with a mouse. So I would love to see them make the most of this. I think that's going to drive sales if they can really find a way to make the most of it. Something else that I'd love to see on the Switch 2 is an achievement system, a dedicated achievement and trophy system, similar to the PlayStation 5. That's something that keeps me coming back to the PlayStation ecosystem. Time and time again. Yes, their games are great, but so are Nintendo's. I mean, Nintendo has your Marios, your Zeldas. I love my Nintendo games, but something that keeps me coming back to the PlayStation is that I have that catalog, I have those achievements, and I don't want to necessarily lose that progress. So I'd love to see them lean into the achievement system a bit more. So maybe that's something we get in the Switch 2 era, maybe not. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you would like to see an achievement system in the Switch 2. It's definitely something I would like to see. Now, let's get into some predictions. First, let's start with release date. When is this thing going to come out? Initially, I'm thinking perhaps June and July based on the Switch 2 experience events. Because the Switch 2 experience events, based on Nintendo's website, they start in April, and the scheduled ones go through June so far, and there are a couple ones that don't have a date yet. So maybe mid to late June, but realistically, I could see it being sometime in July, that back half of the year. Who knows? Maybe even fall. But I would say at the earliest, maybe June or July would be my earliest guess when this thing is going to get released. Now, predictions for launch titles. I made a list here I want to cover. First and foremost, we absolutely know Mario Kart's coming because Mario Kart was in the trailer. So I think that could be a really great time, finally getting a fresh coat of paint on Mario Kart and Mario Kart 9. Historically, there's a new 3D Mario as well. So I think it's time, of course, that we get a new Odyssey. Maybe it's not called Odyssey, of course, but a new 3D Mario that we can all get our hands on and enjoy. So a 3D Mario, a Mario Kart, of course. I think we're also due for the new Metroid Prime 4. I mean, I think this game has been in development for maybe 8 years at this point. I believe it was announced for the first Switch in 2017, but through a lot of delays and some other reasons, it's finally set for a 2025 release date, which would align it with the Switch 2. So I would imagine either that being a launch title or a title that you can buy shortly after. And then also it's been rumored that a new Star Fox game would be coming to the Switch 2 shortly after launch or at launch. And this just makes me so happy because one of my favorite GameCube games, in fact, was Star Fox. And I know there's been some newer ones, but I didn't really play the Wii. I know that was, I think, the most recent one. But it's been almost a decade since we got a new Star Fox game. And given today's development cycles, we're definitely due for a new Star Fox. Now, we can also start talking ports, because there have been many ports rumored to be coming to the Switch 2 over the last few weeks. One including Final Fantasy VII Remake, that we covered that on this channel in the last video. Another one being Halo Master Chief Collection, which we also covered in the last video. I could definitely see that coming, given the leaks. Other ports, maybe a Cyberpunk 2077 or a Red Dead Redemption 2, now that we're finally getting some more power on this Switch. Maybe even an upgrade for Zelda Breath of the Wild, now that we have a little bit more power on the Switch too. So yeah, just to summarize here, a new 3D Mario Kart, which is for sure coming. We got that in the reveal trailer. Metro Prime, maybe even a Star Fox, a fresh coat of paint on Breath of the Wild, and then some other ports like your Final Fantasy VII and your Halo Master Chief Collection, which we've already reported on this channel due to the industry insider leaks. But I think all of those, if those happen, would be a really strong start to the console, and would give gamers a lot of things to play. So we shall see. Now finally, predictions on price. I'm seeing some people say $400, which I think that's on the low end for sure. I mean, new PS4s are low to mid 300s. The Slims are in that range or even pushing 400. So I think this will be at least $400, given the fact that it's new hardware, it's a new console, new tech, new games. I think we would even see this potentially up to $450, given the fact we've already seen what Sony's been getting away with the PS5 Pro. Now, I admit it, I bought one. I bought a PS5 Pro. I love it, but I'm just a super gaming nerd, and you know what? So be it. I wanted to spend my money on it. It is what it is. But that's not the topic. Switch 2, though. I could definitely see it going for $450. What are your thoughts on the release date, launch titles, and price? We're going to be covering all of these topics closely on the channel throughout the year, and we're also going to be covering the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, 2025, followed by the Nintendo Switch 2 Experience events. That's going to be fun. Are any one of you going to one of those events? I'd be curious to find out and hear what you think. Now, if you made it this far, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back at least weekly, providing you with other gaming content that is the most relevant to you. So if you enjoyed it, consider liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, and all that jazz, whatever the kids do these days. It really does help the channel grow and keep me excited to continue making this kind of content for all of you outside of my full-time job. I mean, that is the theme of the channel, right? We work hard 9 to 5, we play games 5 to 9. But yeah, consider that. But until next time, I'll see you 5 to 9.